They said I came into this world screaming louder than any baby they'd ever heard. Like I already knew what was waiting for me. Hello. My name is June Mae Whitfield. I'm 70 years old, and I live in a small town in northern Minnesota now. I have 5 grandchildren, a husband who still holds my hand when we walk to the mailbox, a house with central heating and windows that don't rattle when the wind blows. But I wasn't always June Mae Whitfield. For the first 18 years of my life, I was something else entirely. Something people whispered about. Something they crossed the street to avoid. I was born in 1955, in a part of rural Kentucky that most maps forgot existed. Our house sat at the end of a dirt road, propped up on cinder blocks. Brown recluse spiders nested underneath. Copperheads sunned themselves on the porch steps. The roof was corrugated tin, and in summer, it turned the whole place into an oven. My mama was 19 when she had me. Just a girl, really. She'd married my father 6 months before I arrived. He was a drifter who worked at the sawmill 2 towns over. Handsome, people said. Charming when he wanted to be. I was born at dawn. The midwife's name was Barbara. She'd delivered half the babies in the county. Seen everything, or so she thought. Years later, when I was old enough to ask questions, my Aunt Rachel told me what happened that morning. Barbara had lifted me up, ready to hand me to my mama. Then she stopped. Just froze, right there in the lamplight. "Lord have mercy," she whispered. My skin was white. Not baby pink. Not cream-colored. White like the inside of an eggshell. My hair was fine and pale as corn silk. And my eyes. Barbara said they looked pink in certain light. Like a rabbit's. Mama started crying before she even held me. My father was waiting on the porch. Smoking. Pacing. When Barbara came out, she didn't say a word. Just shook her head and walked to her truck. He came inside, looked at me in my mama's arms. Then he backed away like I was on fire. "That ain't my child," he said. Mama tried to explain. Tried to show him I was just a baby. His baby. But he was already packing his bag. "Dorothy, you must have laid with the devil himself. That thing ain't natural." He left before sunrise the next day. Took his truck, his rifle, and every dollar they had. Never came back. Not once in all my 70 years. My mama never recovered from those words. She was young and scared and alone. She believed what he said. Some part of her always wondered if maybe she had done something wrong. If maybe I was punishment for some sin she couldn't remember. So she didn't raise me. My grandmother did. Virginia Mae Dawson. My mama's mother. A thin woman with black eyes and a mouth that rarely smiled. She wore her gray hair in a tight bun. Went to Mass 3 times a week. Said the rosary every night. Fasted on Fridays until her hands shook. When she first saw me, she didn't scream. Didn't cry. Just looked at me for a long time. Then she made the sign of the cross. "This child is a judgment," she said. "Someone in this family sinned greatly. And this is God's punishment." That was the moment I became something other than a baby. I became a lesson, a warning, living proof that the Lord was watching and keeping score. My grandmother took over. She fed me, clothed me, kept me alive. But love? That was never part of the arrangement. I learned early that sunlight was my enemy. My skin burned in minutes. Blistered, peeled, bled. So my grandmother kept me inside. Drew the curtains. covered the windows with old sheets. The light hurts her, she'd tell people. Because she's marked. I grew up in shadows. While other children ran barefoot through fields, I watched from behind dusty glass. While they swam in the creek, I sat in my room, tracing letters in a Bible. School was worse. I started first grade at 6 years old. The schoolhouse was a one-room building with a potbelly stove. Mrs. Patterson was the teacher. She was kind enough. But she couldn't control what happened outside. The children stared, pointed, whispered, "Look at her eyes. She's a ghost. My mama says she's cursed." By second grade, the whispers turned into something else. They threw rocks. Called me names I won't repeat. Once, a boy named Samuel pushed me into a ditch and held my head under water until I nearly passed out. Mrs. Patterson bandaged my cuts, dried my tears, but she never stopped it. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe she was scared too. I came home every day with bruises. My grandmother would look at them and say nothing. She never asked who hurt me. Never went to the school. Never held me. "This is your cross to bear," she'd say. "Offer it up to God." So I did. Every bruise, every cut, every cruel word. I offered it all up. Prayed it would be enough. That someday God would see how much I'd suffered and lift this curse. But the curse stayed. My mama lived with us, but she was more like a ghost than a mother. She cooked, cleaned, did laundry, but she rarely looked at me. When she did, her eyes were wet and far away. Sometimes, late at night, I'd hear her crying in her room. Thin, quiet sobs that went on for hours. I wanted to go to her. To hold her hand. To tell her I wasn't angry. But I never did. I was afraid she'd look at me with that same expression my father had. The one that said I was something wrong. Then there was Aunt Rachel. She was my mama's younger sister. 23 when I was born. She had red hair and freckles and a laugh that made you feel like the world might not be so terrible after all. Aunt Rachel didn't live with us. She worked at a diner in town. But she visited every Sunday after church. And she always brought something for me. A piece of butterscotch candy wrapped in gold paper. A ribbon for my hair. Once, an old picture book with the cover torn off. My grandmother disapproved. "You're spoiling her," she'd say. "She needs to learn humility." But Aunt Rachel just smiled and kept bringing her little gifts. She was the one who taught me to read. Really read. Not just the Bible verses my grandmother made me memorize, but actual books. Stories about faraway places, adventures, people who were different and still found happiness. "June," she'd whisper when my grandmother wasn't listening, "you're smart as a whip. Smarter than anyone I know. Don't let them make you forget that." I held onto those words. Tucked them inside my chest like a secret treasure. But even Aunt Rachel couldn't change what I was. What everyone saw when they looked at me. By the time I was 10, I'd stopped hoping things would get better. I'd accepted my life the way you accept the weather. You can't change it. You just endure it. I woke up, prayed, did my chores, avoided the sun, avoided people, read my books in the dark, went to sleep, repeated it all the next day. But something was coming. I didn't know it then, but my whole world was about to crack open. Not in a good way. Not yet. The real darkness was still ahead of me. The kind that makes you want to stop breathing. Stop existing. I was 10 years old, and I thought I knew what suffering was. I had no idea. Puberty hit me like a freight train. I was 11 years old. It was a Tuesday in August. Hot as the devil's kitchen, my grandmother would say. I woke up before dawn, like always. Something felt wrong. Wet. Sticky. I pulled back the sheets. The white cotton was stained dark red. My first thought was that I was dying. That God had finally decided to take me. I wasn't even sad about it. Just confused. I ran to my grandmother's room. Knocked on the door. My hands were shaking. "Grandmother, I'm bleeding. Something's wrong." She opened the door, looked at my nightgown, at the blood on my thighs. Her expression didn't change. "Stop your fussing," she said. "It's Eve's curse. Every woman pays for what she did in the garden." She handed me a stack of old rags. Torn up sheets with rust-colored stains from years of use. Showed me how to fold them. Pin them in place. Change them when they're soaked. Wash them yourself. And don't speak of this to anyone. It's shameful. That was it. No explanation. No comfort. Just another sin my body had committed. After that, everything about me became evidence of wrongdoing. The way my body was changing. The way I looked in the mirror. All of it was proof that I was corrupt. Unclean. Marked by something I couldn't wash off. I was 13 when the incident with Harold Greer happened. Harold lived 3 houses down. A bachelor in his 40s. Worked odd jobs when he was sober enough. Which wasn't often. Most evenings, he sat on his porch with a bottle of whiskey, watching the road. I'd been taught to avoid him. Crossed to the other side when I saw him. Don't make eye contact. But that September evening, I didn't see him coming. I was walking back from the well. Carrying a bucket of water. The sun was setting, turning the sky orange and pink. I'd timed it so the light wouldn't burn me too badly. He stepped out from behind the old oak tree. Appeared like a shadow. Well, he slurred. The ghost girl. I tried to walk around him. He blocked my path. "Where you going so fast?" His breath smelled like rot. Like something had died inside him and he'd been pickling it in alcohol. "Home," I whispered. "Please let me pass." He grabbed my arm. His fingers dug in hard enough to leave marks. "You know what they say about you, girl? Say you're the devil's child. That true?" I shook my head. Tried to pull away. The water bucket fell. Spilled everywhere. "Let's see if you bleed red like the rest of us." I screamed. Loud as I could. He clamped his other hand over my mouth. It tasted like tobacco and sweat. I did the only thing I could think of. I bit down. Hard. Felt my teeth break skin. Tasted copper. He howled. Let go. Stumbled backward. "You little demon." I ran. Faster than I'd ever run. Didn't stop until I was inside the house. Slammed the door. Locked it. Collapsed on the floor, gasping. My grandmother found me there. Saw the bruises forming on my arm. The dirt on my dress. The terror in my eyes. I told her everything. The words tumbled out between sobs. How he'd grabbed me, threatened me, how I'd bitten him to get away. She listened. Then her face hardened. "What were you doing out at dusk?" "Alone? Getting water. Like you told me to." "Don't sass me. A decent girl wouldn't be wandering about when the sun's going down." "You gave him ideas, going out there looking like you do." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You exist," she said. "That's enough." She locked me in my room for a week. Bread and water twice a day. No books. No lamp. Just darkness and my own thoughts. Through the walls, I could hear her talking to Aunt Rachel. It's her own fault. The way she is. She invites trouble. Aunt Rachel's voice, sharp. She's a child, Mama. A child. She's a curse. And curses bring suffering wherever they go. That week in the dark, something inside me cracked. Not broke. Not yet. But cracked. Like ice on a pond in early spring. I started to hate. Not just Harold. Not just my grandmother. I hated God. Hated him for making me this way. For not protecting me. For staying silent while his so-called faithful blamed me for my own attack. At night, I'd pray. But not like before. If you're really there, I'd whisper, then why? What did I do? I was just a baby. I didn't ask to be born. No answer ever came. I was 14 when I met Dylan. He was the son of a farmer who lived on the hill. 2 years older than me. Brown hair. Kind eyes. He'd seen me at school before I'd stopped going. Never thrown rocks. Never called me names. One morning, I found a note tucked under our fence post. Written on lined paper in careful handwriting. You're not what they say you are. I think you're pretty. I read that note so many times the paper wore thin. We started meeting in secret. Early mornings. Before anyone was awake. By the old well behind the church. He'd bring me things. Wildflowers. A book he'd finished. Once, an apple still warm from his pocket. Why are you nice to me? I asked him once. He shrugged. Why wouldn't I be? No one had ever answered a question with another question like that. Like my worth was obvious. Like I didn't need to explain my right to exist. For 3 months, Dylan was my sunrise. The only thing that made waking up bearable. Then my grandmother found out. I don't know how. Maybe someone saw us. Maybe she read my face when I came home those mornings. Saw something like hope there and knew it had to be stamped out. It was a Sunday. After church. The whole congregation milling about in their best clothes. She grabbed my wrist. Dragged me to the center of the yard. Right in front of everyone. This girl, she announced, her voice carrying, has been sneaking around with the Morrison boy. Sneaking around like a harlot. People gasped. Whispered. Stared. I tried to explain. We just talked. We didn't do anything wrong. She slapped me. In front of everyone. The sound echoed off the church walls. Then she unbuckled her belt. This is what happens to girls who forget their place. She beat me right there. In the churchyard. While people watched. Some turned away. Most didn't. I didn't see Dylan after that. His family sent him to live with relatives in another county. I heard he was meant for a girl from a good family. A normal girl. Not a curse. That night, I made a decision. I waited until the house was quiet. Until my grandmother's snoring rattled through the thin walls. Until my mama's room went dark. I took an old bedsheet. Tore it into strips. Braided them together. Made them strong. The beam in my room was exposed. Solid oak. Would hold my weight. I dragged the wooden crate under it. Stood on top. Looped my makeshift rope over the beam. Tied one end to the wood. The other end, I fashioned into a noose. My hands were steady. That surprised me. I put the noose around my neck. Felt the rough fabric against my skin. Tightened it. I thought about leaving a note. But for who? Who would care? I closed my eyes. I'm sorry, God. I tried. I really tried. I kicked the crate away. The rope tightened. Instantly, I couldn't breathe. My lungs burned. My hands clawed at my throat. Instinct. The body wanting to live even when the mind has given up. Black spots danced in my vision. The edges of the world went fuzzy. Then the door burst open. June. No. Aunt Rachel. She must have come for a late visit. Must have heard the crate fall. She grabbed my legs. Lifted me up. The pressure on my neck eased just enough for me to gasp. Hold on, baby. Hold on. She was crying. Fumbling. Trying to untie the rope with one hand while holding me with the other. Finally, the knot gave way. We both crashed to the floor. Tangled in bedsheet rope and tears. She held me so tight I thought my ribs would crack. Don't you leave me, she sobbed. Don't you dare leave me, June Mae. We stayed like that for a long time. Her rocking me crying for the first time in years. I didn't try again after that. Not because I wanted to live, but because I couldn't stand the thought of Aunt Rachel finding me dead. Of putting that image in her head for the rest of her life. So I switched tactics. I stopped trying to die. I started trying to survive. Out of spite, out of anger, out of some stubborn refusal to let them win. When I was 16, my mama died. Heart attack. Quick. One morning she was frying eggs. The next, she was on the floor, hand clutching her chest. I found her. Called for my grandmother. We couldn't save her. At the funeral, people said she was at peace now. Free from her burden. I knew they meant me. After that, it was just me and my grandmother. The woman who'd called me a curse since birth. She was 72. Getting frail. Forgetful. I took care of her. Cooked her meals. Cleaned her clothes. Helped her to the outhouse. Rubbed her feet when they swelled. She never thanked me. Never softened. You owe me this, she'd say. I kept you alive when everyone said I should have given you away. When I was 18, she had a stroke. Left side went dead. She couldn't feed herself. Couldn't bathe. Couldn't do anything without help. I was her only caretaker. My aunts and uncles visited occasionally. Brought food. Offered prayers. But the daily work? That was mine. 6 months I tended to her. 6 months of lifting, cleaning, feeding. 6 months of her glaring at me with those black eyes, unable to speak but still managing to condemn. She died on a Thursday. Quietly. In her sleep. I felt nothing. The funeral was quick. Simple. Afterwards, my relatives gathered in the living room. My Uncle James, Aunt Patricia, cousins I barely knew. They talked amongst themselves. Made plans. Divided up furniture. Then Uncle James turned to me. June, you'll need to find somewhere else to go. I stared at him. What do you mean? This house belongs to the family. We're selling it. Splitting the money. But I live here. I took care of her. And we're grateful. Here. He reached into his pocket. Pulled out a coffee tin. Counted out some bills and coins. Pushed them across the table toward me. $80. Should be enough to get you started somewhere. $80. For 18 years of my life. For 6 months of nursing his mother. For being told I was a curse every single day. Aunt Patricia spoke up. It's for the best, June. You're young. You can start fresh somewhere. Where nobody knows about your condition. Your condition. Like I had a disease. Like I was contagious. I looked around the room. At their faces. None of them would meet my eyes. I took the money. That night, I packed my things. Didn't take much. My mama's photograph. A worn Bible. A change of clothes. The butterscotch wrapper Aunt Rachel had given me years ago. At dawn, I walked to the main road. Dust was just starting to rise with the morning heat. A pickup truck pulled over. Old farmer heading to Louisville for supplies. Need a ride? I nodded. Climbed in. As the truck pulled away, I watched that old cinder block house grow smaller in the side mirror. Watched Kentucky's red dirt roads blur past. I was 18 years old. I had $80. No education. No family. No prospects. But I was free. For the first time in my life, I was heading toward something instead of hiding from it. I didn't know what waited in Louisville. Didn't know if it would be better or worse than what I'd left behind. But I knew one thing for certain. I was done being someone's punishment. Louisville smelled different than home. Coal smoke, gasoline, fried food from diners. The air was thick with it. People everywhere, moving fast, not looking at each other. The farmer dropped me off at the Greyhound station downtown. Handed me my bag through the window. Good luck, miss. Then he was gone. Swallowed by traffic. I stood on the sidewalk with my cardboard suitcase. $80 in my pocket. No plan. No contacts. Nobody waiting. It was late afternoon. The sun was still high enough to hurt. I found a bench inside the station. Sat there for hours. Watched buses come and go. Watched families reunite. Watched businessmen check their watches. When night fell, I was still there. A security guard approached around midnight. Big man with a kind face. Station closes in an hour, miss. You got somewhere to go? I shook my head. He sighed. Looked around. Lowered his voice. There's a rooming house on 4th Street. Mrs. Linda's place. She takes in women sometimes. Might have work for you too. He wrote the address on a scrap of paper. I thanked him. Walked out into the Louisville night. Mrs. Linda's was exactly what you'd expect. A 3-story wooden building with peeling paint. Crooked shutters. A sign that said, "Rooms, weekly rates." I knocked at 7 in the morning. A large woman answered. Dark hair pinned back. Cigarette dangling from her lips. What do you want? I'm looking for work. And a room. The man at the station said. Let me see your hands. I held them out. She grabbed them. Turned them over. Inspected my palms. You're not afraid of hard work? No, ma'am. She looked at my face then. At my white hair. My pale eyes. I waited for the disgust. The fear. The rejection. Instead, she just grunted. $14 a week. You clean the rooms, do the laundry, help with meals. I give you a bed and leftover food. Deal? I did the math quickly. That would leave me with almost nothing. Yes, ma'am. Deal. She stepped aside. Let me in. That first week, I worked harder than I ever had. Scrubbing floors on my knees. Washing sheets until my hands cracked. Cooking breakfast for 12 boarders who barely looked at me. Mrs. Linda was rough. Short-tempered. Cursed like a sailor. But she didn't call me a curse. Didn't pray over me. Didn't lock me away. It was enough. One evening, a boarder named Mary told me about the hospital. Street. Luke's is hiring cleaners. Pays better than here. 30 cents an hour. You should try. 30 cents an hour. That was more than double what I was making. The next morning, I walked to St. Luke's. It was a 4-story brick building. Old but solid. White paint chipping off the window frames. The head of housekeeping was a stern woman named Mrs. Hendricks. She looked at my application. Looked at me. You have experience? I've been cleaning Mrs. Linda's rooming house. And I took care of my grandmother for years. Can you handle blood? Vomit? Things you don't want to see? Yes, ma'am. She hired me on the spot. Said they were short-staffed. Said most people couldn't stomach hospital work. I started the next day. The first week was brutal. I mopped operating room floors. Scrubbed blood from tiles. Changed sheets that smelled like death. Emptied bedpans. Carried soiled linens to the laundry. My back ached. My feet swelled. My hands were raw from disinfectant. But something strange happened. For the first time in my life, I felt useful. When I cleaned a room, someone recovering from surgery would sleep in it. When I sterilized instruments, someone would use them to save a life. When I mopped a hallway, a doctor would walk down it to treat a patient. I was invisible, but I mattered. At St. Luke's, I met Sister Margaret. She was a nun who worked as a floor nurse. Thin, quick, always moving. She wore a white habit and sensible shoes. Most people ignored the cleaning staff. Not Sister Margaret. One day, she found me in the break room. I was reading a newspaper someone had left behind. Sounding out the bigger words. You read? She asked. I looked up, startled. Yes, sister. My aunt taught me. She sat down across from me. Studied my face. How old are you, child? 18, sister. And you work here, cleaning? I nodded. Waited for the judgment. Instead, she smiled. You're smart. I can see it in your eyes. You should educate yourself further. The next week, she brought me a book. A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. Return it when you're finished, she said. I devoured it in 3 nights. Brought it back. She gave me another. Then another. She never asked about my condition. Never stared at my skin or my eyes. She just saw a young woman who wanted to learn. 6 months passed. I'd saved enough to rent a small room of my own. Nothing fancy. Just a bed, a chair, a hot plate. But it was mine. I still visited Mrs. Linda sometimes. Helped her when she was short-staffed. She'd softened toward me. Once even told me I was a good worker. High praise from her. Life had become manageable. Not good, exactly, but bearable. Then drive. Philip Bergman arrived. It was a Tuesday. I remember because I always cleaned the pediatric ward on Tuesdays. I was mopping the hallway. Head down. Working methodically. Bucket beside me, mop moving in steady arcs. Footsteps approached. Stopped right in front of me. I didn't look up. I'd learned that was safer. Excuse me, a voice said. The accent was strange. Not southern. Something else. The words were careful, precise. Excuse me, he said again. I looked up. He was tall. Blonde hair, slightly messy. Wire-rimmed glasses that sat crookedly on his nose. He wore a white coat. A doctor. He was looking at me. Not through me. At me. His eyes moved over my face. My hair. My arms. Here it comes, I thought. The disgust. The curiosity. The pity. But his expression was different. It was recognition. Like he'd seen something familiar. Do you have albinism? He asked. I stared at him. The word meant nothing to me. I'm sorry. I don't. Albinism, he repeated. It's a genetic condition. Affects melanin production. That's why your skin and hair are so light. Why your eyes are sensitive to light. My mouth went dry. He must have seen my confusion. He knelt down, right there in the hallway. Put himself at my eye level. Like I was important enough to look at straight on. May I? He gestured toward my arm. I nodded, not sure why. He gently took my wrist, turned it over, looked at the pale skin, the veins visible underneath. See how the blood vessels show through? That's because there's very little pigment in your skin. Melanin. It's what gives most people their color. I couldn't speak. He let go of my wrist, looked me in the eyes. This isn't a curse. It's not a punishment. It's a medical condition. You were born with it. About 1 in 20,000 people have it. My whole body started shaking. I'm not cursed? He shook his head firmly. No, you're not cursed. You're not evil. You're not being punished. Your body simply doesn't produce enough melanin. That's all. It's science. Biology. The hallway started spinning. I grabbed the mop handle to steady myself. 18 years. For 18 years, I'd been told I was God's punishment. The devil's child. A living curse. My own grandmother had looked at me every day and seen proof of sin. And it was just, missing pigment? Are you all right? He asked. Concerned now. I wasn't all right. I was falling apart and coming together at the same time. I need to sit down, I whispered. He helped me to a chair, got me water, sat beside me while I tried to breathe. My name is Dr. Philip Bergman, he said. I'm here with a medical mission team. From Minnesota. I specialize in genetics. I took a sip of water. My hands were still shaking. My whole life, I said slowly, everyone told me I was a curse. His expression darkened. That's not medicine. That's superstition. And cruelty. I started crying then. Couldn't help it. 18 years of pain, of shame, of believing I was fundamentally wrong. And here was this stranger in a white coat, telling me it was just biology. He handed me his handkerchief. Waited patiently. When I'd composed myself, he spoke again. Would you like to learn more about your condition? I have some medical texts. They might help you understand. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Meet me in the hospital library tomorrow. Noon. I'll bring some materials. He stood up, adjusted his crooked glasses. You have albinism, miss. That's all. It doesn't define your worth. It doesn't determine your future. It's just part of how your body works. Then he walked away, left me sitting there with a mop and a completely shattered worldview. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept saying the word out loud. Albinism, albinism, albinism. It sounded medical, clinical, clean, not like curse, not like punishment, not like sin. Just a word, a diagnosis, an explanation. I thought about my grandmother, about Harold, about the children who threw rocks, about the Sunday beatings, all of it based on ignorance. All of it based on fear of something they didn't understand. And I'd believed them. For 18 years, I'd believed I deserved it all. The next day at noon, I went to the hospital library. Dr. Bergman was already there. Books spread out on the table. Diagrams. Charts. He spent 2 hours teaching me. About genetics. About melanin. About how conditions are inherited. About famous people throughout history who had albinism. I drank it in. Every word. Your children may or may not inherit it, he said. It depends on whether they get the gene from both parents. It's recessive. Children. I'd never imagined having children. Never thought anyone would want to have children with a curse. But with a genetic condition? Maybe that was different. When our session ended, he gathered his books. Same time next week? He asked. I hesitated. Why are you helping me? He looked surprised by the question. Because you deserve to understand yourself. Because knowledge is better than fear. Because. He paused. Because I believe everyone should know the truth about who they are. He left. I sat in the library for another hour. Just thinking. My whole life was built on a lie. On ignorance and superstition. And now this man, this stranger from Minnesota, had given me a new foundation. But what did I do with it? Did I forgive everyone who'd hurt me? Did I stay angry? Did I rebuild myself from scratch? And what about him? Why did my heart beat faster when he smiled? Why did I replay his words at night? Why did I count the days until our next meeting? This was dangerous. He was a doctor. I was a cleaning woman. He was from Minnesota. I was from rural Kentucky. He had education, family, a future. I had nothing. But for the first time in my life, someone had looked at me and seen a person. Not a curse. Not a mistake. A person. That night, I made a decision. I would learn everything I could about myself. About this condition I'd been born with. And I would stop apologizing for existing. Whatever came next, I would face it as June Mae Whitfield. A woman with albinism. Not a curse. Never again a curse. Philip and I grew closer. Slowly. Carefully. Every Tuesday, we met in the hospital library. He taught me about genetics. About heredity. About the science of what I was. But we talked about other things too. His childhood in Minnesota. The Norwegian traditions his mother kept. The lutefisk at Christmas that he hated. The snow that piled up to the windowsills. I told him about Kentucky. The heat that made you dizzy. The sound of cicadas at night. The way honeysuckle smelled in June. We'd sit there for hours. Just talking. Like normal people. After a month, he asked me to coffee. There's a diner on 3rd Street. They have good pie. I said yes. We went on a Wednesday. My day off. I wore my best dress. Blue cotton with white buttons. I'd bought it used, but it was clean and pressed. He held the door for me. Pulled out my chair. Ordered us both cherry pie. People stared. Of course they did. A man in a pressed shirt with a pale ghost of a woman. Philip didn't seem to notice. Tell me about your dreams, he said. No one had ever asked me that before. I don't know, I admitted. I never thought I'd live long enough to have any. His eyes softened. You have time now, June. Plenty of time. We went to that diner every week. Then twice a week. Then whenever we could. He brought me books. Not just medical texts anymore. Poetry. Novels. Philosophy. You have a hungry mind, he said once. That's rare. I felt myself changing. Growing. Like a plant finally getting sunlight. 3 months in, he kissed me. We were in the hospital garden. Evening. The sun was low enough that it didn't hurt me. He'd been talking about something. I don't remember what. I was watching his mouth move. The way his lips formed words. Then he stopped mid-sentence. June. Yes? I'd very much like to kiss you. My heart stopped. You would? Very much. I nodded. Couldn't speak. He leaned in. Gentle. Slow. Like I was something precious. When his lips touched mine, I understood what all those poems meant. After that, we were inseparable. He introduced me to Sister Margaret as his friend. She smiled knowingly. Mrs. Linda met him once when he walked me home. She cornered me later. That man's in love with you, girl. You know that, right? I did know. And I was in love with him. But I also knew it couldn't last. Men like Philip didn't end up with women like me. I was right to worry. It happened on a Thursday. Philip came to our usual meeting spot. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. "What's wrong?" I asked immediately. He sat down heavily. "My mother called. My brother told her about you." My stomach dropped. What did he tell her? That I've been spending time with a woman. That she's different. Different. Such a polite word for cursed. What did she say? He was quiet for a long moment. "She wants to meet you." My blood ran cold. "Philip, no. June, listen. No. You know what will happen. She'll take one look at me and nothing. I told her I love you. That I want to marry you." The world stopped spinning. "Marry me?" He took my hands. "Yes, June. Marry you. I love you. I want to spend my life with you." Tears burned my eyes. "You can't. Your family. My family will have to accept my choice." But they didn't. 2 weeks later, Philip's mother arrived in Louisville. Mrs. Ingrid Bergman, a small woman with steel gray hair and Philip's blue eyes. She wore a dark dress. Pearl earrings. Her mouth was a thin line. Philip arranged for us to meet at a restaurant. "Neutral ground," he said. I wore my blue dress again. Spent an hour on my hair. Put on the sunscreen Philip had given me. When I walked in, she was already seated. She looked up, saw me. Her face didn't change, but her eyes did. I saw it all flash through them. Shock, disgust, disbelief, then a careful mask. "You must be June." "Yes, ma'am. It's nice to meet you." I sat down. Philip wasn't there yet. Late from the hospital. She studied me like I was a specimen. "Philip tells me you work at the hospital." "Yes, ma'am. Housekeeping." "I see." Silence stretched between us. Finally, she spoke. "You understand, I'm sure, that I have concerns." "Yes, ma'am. Philip comes from a good family. He's educated, has a future, a reputation." I nodded. Waited. "And you are." She trailed off. Let the silence fill in what she meant. "A cleaning woman with albinism," I finished for her. Her eyebrow raised slightly. "You're direct." "I've learned to be." She leaned forward. "Let me be direct as well, then. If you care about my son at all, you'll let him go." The words hit me like a slap. "Excuse me? You'll ruin him, Miss Whitfield. His career, his standing, his chances for a normal family. I love your son." "Love." She said the word like it tasted sour. "Love doesn't pay bills. Love doesn't give you healthy children. Love doesn't protect you from a society that will shun you both." I felt my hands start shaking. Philip is a grown man. He makes his own choices. Philip is naive. He sees you as a project. Someone to save. When the novelty wears off, he'll resent you. And you'll have taken his best years. Each word was a knife. "That's not true, isn't it?" She leaned closer. "What do you have to offer him, Miss Whitfield? You have no education, no family, no money. You can't even go out in the sun without burning." I opened my mouth to respond. The door opened. Philip walked in. "Mother. June. Sorry I'm late." He bent to kiss me. I pulled away slightly. He noticed. "What's wrong?" His mother smiled smoothly. "We were just getting to know each other." Lunch was torture. Philip tried to make conversation. His mother answered in clipped sentences. I barely ate. When it was over, Philip walked his mother to her hotel. He came back to my room that night. What happened? I couldn't lie to him. I told him everything she'd said. Every word. His face darkened with each sentence. When I finished, he was silent for a long moment. "Do you believe her?" he asked finally. "I don't know. Do you believe I see you as a project?" Tears streamed down my face. "Maybe you do. Maybe you just don't know it yet." He grabbed my shoulders. His eyes were fierce. "June Mae Whitfield, I love you, not your condition, not the idea of saving you. You, your mind, your strength, your heart. I love you, but your family, my family can either accept you or lose me. That's their choice." I shook my head. "I can't let you give up everything for me. You're not letting me do anything. I'm choosing. For the first time in my life, I'm choosing what I want. Not what's expected, not what's proper. What I want." He pulled me close. "And I want you. I want to wake up next to you. I want to grow old with you. I want to have children with you. Children who might be like me. Children who will be loved. No matter what." I cried into his chest. The next day, Philip met with his mother alone. I waited in my room, pacing, sick with worry. 3 hours later, he returned. His face was stone. "What happened?" He sat on my bed, ran his hands through his hair. "She gave me an ultimatum. You or the family." My heart stopped. "Philip, I chose you. You can't." "I already did." He looked at me. His eyes were red but steady. "She said if I marry you, I'm no longer her son. My inheritance is gone. My family name means nothing. I'm cut off. Then don't marry me." He grabbed my hands. "June, I'd rather be poor and loved than rich and empty. I'd rather have you in a one-room apartment than a mansion with a woman I don't love. You'll regret it. One day you'll wake up and—" "Stop." His voice was firm. "Stop deciding for me. Stop assuming you know what I'll feel. I love you, June. Not because you're different. Not despite you being different. I love you because you're the strongest, bravest, most beautiful person I've ever met." He got down on one knee. "Marry me. Not someday. Now. Marry me and let me prove every day that I chose right." I was sobbing. "Yes." He slipped a ring on my finger. Simple. Silver. Probably all he could afford now. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. We married the following month. At a small church downtown. Sister Margaret was there. Mrs. Linda came. A few nurses from the hospital. No family. Not mine, because they'd disowned me. Not his, because he'd chosen me over them. When the priest asked if anyone objected, the silence was deafening. "I do," Philip said loudly. "I object to anyone who ever made this woman feel less than perfect." I laughed through my tears. We said our vows. Exchanged rings. "I now pronounce you man and wife." He kissed me, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged somewhere. That night, in our tiny apartment, he held me. "No more curses," he whispered. "No more shame. From now on, we're just us. Philip and June Bergman. A family." I believed him. I finally believed. Our first year of marriage was lean. Philip worked double shifts at the hospital. I kept my cleaning job. We lived in that tiny apartment with the leaky faucet and the radiator that clanked all night. We were poor, but we weren't miserable. Every evening, he'd come home exhausted. I'd have dinner ready. Something simple. Beans and rice. Soup. Whatever I could stretch. We'd sit at our small table, and he'd tell me about his day. The patients he'd seen. The procedures he'd assisted with. His dreams of having his own practice someday. I'd tell him about the books I was reading. The night classes I'd started taking. Sister Margaret had convinced me to get my high school equivalency. "You're too smart to clean floors forever," she'd said. Philip agreed. So I studied. Every night after work. Math. Science. English. History. All the things I'd missed, locked away in that dark Kentucky farmhouse. I passed the exam 6 months later. Philip framed my certificate, hung it above our bed. "First of many," he said. Life was good. Hard, but good. Then I got pregnant. I found out on a Tuesday. The doctor at the free clinic confirmed it. I walked home in a daze. When Philip came home that night, I was sitting in the dark. "June? What's wrong? Why are you crying?" I couldn't stop shaking. "I'm pregnant." His face lit up. "That's wonderful. June, that's..." Then he saw my expression. He knelt beside me. "What is it? What if the baby is like me?" The question hung in the air. He was quiet for a moment. Then he took my hands. "Then we'll love them, the same way I love you. But the world is changing, June. And even if it's not, we'll protect our child. We'll teach them what I taught you. That it's not a curse. It's just biology." I wanted to believe him. I did. But at night, I'd lie awake. Hand on my belly. Praying. Not to God, exactly. I wasn't sure about God anymore. But praying to something. Anything. Please. Let this child be normal. Let them have an easier life than mine. The pregnancy was hard. Morning sickness that lasted all day. My pale skin stretched thin over my growing belly. Philip monitored everything. Checked my blood pressure. Made sure I ate enough. Worried constantly. 8 months in, I went into labor. It was February. Snow falling outside. Philip drove me to the hospital, hands gripping the steering wheel. 16 hours of labor. I thought I would die. And then, a cry, high and strong. "It's a boy," the nurse said. Philip cut the cord. His hands were shaking. They placed the baby on my chest. I looked at him. Brown hair, tan skin, dark eyes blinking up at me. Not albino. I started sobbing. Philip leaned over us both. Tears streaming down his face too. "He's perfect, June. He's absolutely perfect." We named him Liam Eric Bergman. Liam. It means strong-willed warrior. He was my warrior. My proof that the curse ended with me. 18 months later, our daughter Claire was born. Same tan skin. Same dark hair. Both of them taking after their father. I was grateful. God help me, I was grateful they didn't look like me. It took me years to unpack the shame in that gratitude. When Liam was 2, the phone call came. Philip's mother. She was brief. Formal. "I would like to meet my grandchildren. If you'll allow it." Philip looked at me. Left the decision to me. I thought about saying no. This woman had tried to destroy us. Had called me a project. A mistake. Had disowned her own son. But I also thought about Liam and Claire. They deserved to know their grandmother. Their heritage. "Yes," I said. "She can come." She arrived on a Saturday. I'd cleaned the apartment 3 times. Baked bread. Put the children in their best clothes. When she walked in, her eyes went straight to Liam. She knelt down, touched his face, and she cried. He looks just like Philip at that age. Then she looked at me. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, she said, "I was wrong. 3 words. But they cost her everything to say. I was wrong about you. About this. I let my fear speak louder than my love. She stood up, faced me directly. Can you forgive an old woman's foolishness? I thought about all the old women in my life. My grandmother, who'd called me a curse until her dying day. My mother, who'd never been able to look at me. This woman was offering something none of them ever had. Acknowledgement. Apology. Change. Yes, I said. I can. She hugged me then. Stiff at first. Then tighter. Thank you, she whispered. For loving my son. For giving him these beautiful children. For being stronger than I ever could be. That summer, we moved to Minnesota. Philip's mother had a connection at a hospital there. Better pay. Better opportunities. And she wanted to be near her grandchildren. We packed up our tiny apartment. Everything we owned fit in the back of a borrowed truck. The drive north took 2 days. I watched the landscape change. Kentucky's red clay gave way to Illinois' flat plains. Then Wisconsin's forests. Finally, Minnesota's lakes and snow. Our new home was in a small town. Norwegian families mostly. Lutheran churches on every corner. Long winters. Longer nights. The house was modest. 2 bedrooms. 1 bathroom. But it had central heating. Running water. A yard where the children could play. Philip started at the hospital. Built his practice slowly. Earned respect. I went back to school. Got my nursing degree at 35. Started working alongside Sister Margaret, who'd transferred north too. Told you were too smart to clean floors, she said. The children grew. Liam was quiet, thoughtful, loved books like his mother. Loved science like his father. Claire was loud, adventurous, climbed every tree, scraped every knee. They asked about my skin sometimes. Why are you so white, Mama? Why do you wear sunglasses all the time? Why does the sun hurt you? I told them the truth. Simply, scientifically, the way Philip had told me. Mama has something called albinism. My body doesn't make enough melanin. That's the stuff that gives skin its color. So I have to be careful in the sun. They accepted it, the way children accept things. Matter-of-factly, without judgment. Once, when Liam was 7, a kid at school called me a ghost. Liam punched him. He came home with a black eye and a note from the principal. Philip was furious. I was proud. That night, I sat on his bed. You can't hit people who say mean things about me. But they were wrong. Yes. But violence doesn't fix ignorance. Education does. He thought about that. Then I'll educate them. He did. He wrote a report about albinism for his class. Presented it. Explained the genetics. The statistics. The facts. The other kids stopped calling me ghost after that. My son had done what I never could. He'd defended me with knowledge, not fists. Years passed. Philip's hair went gray. Mine stayed white, of course. We joked about it. The children graduated high school. College. Started their own lives. Liam became a teacher. Claire, a nurse like me. They got married. Had children of their own. 5 grandchildren between them. All of them healthy. All of them loved. Philip's mother passed away when she was 82. Peacefully. In her sleep. At her funeral, Philip squeezed my hand. She loved you in the end, he said. Truly loved you. I know. And I did know. She'd proven it over 20 years of Sunday dinners. Birthday celebrations. Holiday gatherings. She'd become the grandmother my children needed. The mother-in-law I never expected. People can change. That was the lesson. Given enough love and enough time, people can change. Now here I am, 70 years old, sitting in this house in northern Minnesota. Snow falling outside the window. Philip dozing in his chair, a book open on his lap. My skin is still white. My hair is still pale. My eyes still hurt in bright light. But I'm not a curse. I'm not a punishment. I'm not a ghost or a demon or the devil's child. I'm June Mae Bergman, wife, mother, grandmother, nurse, survivor. I'm a woman who was born different in a world that feared difference. A woman who was told she was worthless by everyone who should have protected her. A woman who tried to end her own life at 14 because she believed what they said. But I'm also a woman who found one person who saw her clearly. Who gave her a name for what she was. Who loved her not despite her difference, but with full knowledge of it. One person changed everything. That's what I want you to understand. It only takes one person. One teacher who sees potential. One doctor who shares knowledge. One friend who offers kindness. One stranger who treats you like a human being. One person can rewrite the story you've been told about yourself. I spent 18 years believing I was a living curse. It took one man, one word, one diagnosis, to show me I was simply a woman with a genetic condition. Albinism. Not evil. Not punishment. Just biology. If you're watching this and you feel like a curse, please hear me. You're not. You're not what they call you. You're not what they see when they look at you. You're not the fear in their eyes or the cruelty in their words. You are a human being, worthy of love. Worthy of respect. Worthy of a full life. The people who hurt you are acting out of ignorance. Out of fear. Out of their own pain. That doesn't excuse them, but it explains them. And it means their words have no power. Not really. Not unless you give them power. I gave their words power for 18 years. Let them convince me I deserved to die. I'm glad I failed. I'm glad Aunt Rachel found me that night. I'm glad I survived long enough to meet Philip. To have my children. To hold my grandchildren. I'm glad I lived. This life, with all its pain and beauty, has been worth living. The snow is falling harder now. Philip is snoring softly. The house smells like the cinnamon rolls I baked this morning. Later, Claire will bring the grandchildren over. They'll run through the house, laughing. They'll ask me to tell them stories. About Kentucky. About the hospital. About how I met their grandfather. They won't see a curse when they look at me. They'll see their grandmother, June, the woman who makes the best cinnamon rolls and tells the best stories. That's who I am now. Not a curse, not a punishment, just Grandma June. And that's enough. That's more than enough. Thank you for listening to my story. All of it. The pain and the healing. The darkness and the light. It means more than you know that you stayed until the end. If this story touched you, if it made you think, if it gave you hope, I have a small request. Please subscribe to this channel. Hit that like button. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next story. Your support helps us share more stories like this. Stories of survival. Stories of love. Stories of people who were told they were nothing and proved they were everything. We're all writing our own stories. Make yours a good one. Until next time.